Hello. We have a very interesting chess problem here, and just to give you a little bit of the background to it, back in the 1970s when I was a small boy back in New Zealand, I subscribed to a publication organisation that was based in Wellington, and it was from the Soviet Union at the time. Of course, Russia and many other countries were under the USSR, and anyone who showed the slightest bit of interest in the Soviet Union had no difficulty at all in getting all sorts of material back. What I was primarily interested in was getting any kind of paraphernalia on chess, because I was becoming very interested in the game. I played a lot of correspondence chess and I found it very useful, and it was published in English. This is the beauty of it. And just to show you, I still have one of the cuttings from that date, and here it is now. There's a couple of chess problems here. As you can see, the head office is in Moscow. And this gentleman here, a Roshal, put together this column. So these problems go back quite a way, and I've just recently thought about it that I'd have another look at them. So the first one here is a mate in 2 moves. And when you look at this sort of a position, you think to yourself, you have to be very careful, because you don't want to give the opponent the chance of getting a stalemate, which of course would be most unfortunate given the material advantage in such a position as this. So what immediately hits you, I suppose, many might agree with me, is that the G-pawn should be made to move. And so long as black can move that, there's no question of a stalemate. However, this is not the solution for this one at all. But I can give you a variation on this, my own variation that I played around with, where it ends up being a mate in 3, and that modus operandi does come into play. So we'll come back to that in a few minutes. But for the moment, just take a look at this position and see if you can gauge what could possibly be the key move in this position. Pause the video if you like. Bearing in mind what I said, you don't want to have a stalemate facing you. I'll give you a clue though, it is nothing to do with the G-pawn moving this time around. My idea that's coming along in a few minutes will be, but not with this one. It's something else entirely. And it's not easy to see. I managed to solve it within a few minutes, believe it or not. And that's what gave me the idea then of playing around with the G-pawn. I thought about it and then I discarded it. And I went in for something else. And it was because I went in for something else that I found it quickly. If you concentrate on the G-pawn for this, you'll never get it. So just keep having a look at it. The rook controls the C line, of course. At the moment, the black king cannot move. So it is a stalemate as it stands. You know, if it were black's move, it would be a stalemate. So I can't emphasize too much that you particularly wanted to avoid a situation like that. It's every chess player's nightmare to have such a material advantage and then not be able to make it count. Okay, you've had a good look at it. I'll give you a clue. It's a king move, believe it or not. Now, if you look at king here, or d3, right, thinking, oh, right, he can't move anywhere other than e4. Let's try e4. Can you inflict a mate there? Taking the pawn doesn't mate, because if you did, the king can just go back here, because the queen is no longer in this diagonal here. You take the knight. So it's king e3. Stick these back for a moment. Yeah, there and there. Just put it back for a second and have another look at it. King e3 I said, didn't I? Okay, let's say king e4. How does white mate black in this position? It's not possible to do it. Because even rook to here, the king can just go back here, or it can take the knight. So let's just say instead of that, the king does take the knight. Okay, just have a look at that for a moment. How do you inflict mate in one move at that stage? If you move, for instance, queen down to here, then the king can escape this way. So it's not mate in two. Equally, if you take the pawn, the king can escape to these squares. It has plenty of squares at which to escape. So it's not a mate in two. So we'll just put these back for a moment. So I think we've confirmed that bringing the king back doesn't work. So where can it go? Well, the obvious move is to here. Now, in fact, it's not the obvious move, because if you look at this, you're blocking the diagonal, which is something that you wouldn't really want to do. The knight is en prise, which means it can be taken at will. But these important squares here, 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 and all down here are covered. So black is left with no option in that position but to take the knight, given that the knight is covering here. Or it can go here. Okay, let's go here first. How do you inflict the mate next move? Not by going here, because the king can just come back, given that the queen is now checking it, so it would just come back this way. But what you can do is you can play here, rather sneaky, and that's checkmate, because the queen now does cover the rook, since you're putting the king in check and the king can't take it. It can't go anywhere down here, it can't go here because of the knight. And it can't go here because of the king. So that will be checkmate. So the only other alternative is to take the knight. So take it. Now, that's one move by white, one move by black. This is the moment of truth. How does white inflict checkmate in one move? It's there. Can you see it? I'll give you just another moment, but it is there. Okay. It's queen d1. And as can be seen, white has total control of the c line and of the d line, and the king protects these squares. So that is definitely checkmate. Quite an interesting composition. Okay, what I'll do now is I'll give you my version of this. There's a slight difference. Just put these back in place. And the knight is there. Yeah. Okay, let's switch the rooks over. Let's just say for a moment it's a black rook instead of a white rook there. Now, my problem here is, how does white mate in 3 moves? And this is where the g-pawn does come in handy. Again, as things stand, black has an opportunity of escaping this way. Not here because of the queen, not here because of the knight, nor here for the queen and king. But it can come down here because now it's a black rook instead of a white rook. So what is the first move? I think we have to eliminate the possibility of the king escaping. So it's pretty clear that we want that rook out the way. So get rid of that. And now white does control the C line once again. He also controls there with the knight, there with the queen, there with the king, and he can't capture the knight. So as things stand, the king cannot move. But thankfully, this is what I was saying earlier in this video, we have the G-pawn to move. That's the forced move. White then, of course, plays to here. Queen C7 check. It's temporarily vacating control of the square here, E6, which is of course the only square that the king can move. So the king moves there, and then quite simply the third move is the queen there, and that is checkmate. So I don't suppose the compiler of this problem anticipated that somebody like me would play around with it, but it shows you how interesting it can be to change the color of the piece and see what you can do with it. See if it makes that much of a difference. You cannot inflict mate in 2, incidentally, with the black rook at c8 like you can with the white rook at c8. It takes one more move and that's it. Now there's another problem on there which I'll give some time over to another time, but for the moment I hope you enjoyed those couple of little brain teasers, and keep enjoying playing your chess, and goodbye for now.